If you have any negative experiences or involving Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, comic books, video games, and all their business practices, please tell me about it. I'd be more than happy to read some comments on that. As I finish writing my thoughts on Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering, I would be amiss to not include the recent news of leaked documents from Wizards of the Coast. I'm just giving the basics for sake of time and the fact other people have already gone further in depth that I'll link in the description down below. So before getting into how I see Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and Games Workshop Warhammer as a scamming money pit, Wizards of the Coast has been pressured by Hasbro to monetize their D&D property a little more. To do this, they came up with this insane new contract. Vendors and people who use D&D inspired games for content like Critical Role or Pathfinder will have to agree to this or not be allowed to continue their operations. Can't say Dungeons & Dragons is a scam, but Wizards of the Coast has definitely made it a trap. In the contract at first claims that this will only be 25% of vendors making over $750,000 a year, and 20% of Kickstarter campaigns. However, like most contracts from every company we blindly sign, it states they can revoke this open license whenever they want and make changes anytime they want. Really, if you ask me, D&D content is dead. Make your own shit and just tweak it enough that it has nothing to do with the license. If you want more details in regard to this specific topic, I linked the videos down below from D&D Shorts. I know as of editing this, they have since walked back on their changes. However, it doesn't matter. Don't forget that they tried in the first place. Corporations are never your friend, especially the ones that say they are. Next time they'll probably do it again, only in increments. Things that are not as noticeable. Now let's get into why tabletop gaming is a scam people would likely be better off dropping altogether. If you have fun playing Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, fine. No one can take that away from you. If you make a living playing competitively or painting models, even better. For me, outside of a dedicated competitive intent or just casual collecting, all this shit is a goddamn scam. We are going to go through card games, tabletop war games, touch on comics as well, and video games. How they take their consumers for a ride, and then I'm going to share my own experiences with them. Though I'm not above this. I played plenty of Starlink on Switch, Warframe, Vermintide 1 and 2, Dark Tide, and have a whole bunch of random figures, stuffies, and 10 raptors hanging on my monitor. Though in my case, I'm not required to get more stuff, and I don't need to perpetually drain my wallet on Dark Tide cosmetics as if that will make the game better. All that aside, I have also dabbled in Magic, Warhammer, and mainstream comics. Alright, all the prefaces are out of the way, I think. Let me know if I offended your sensibilities and triggered corporate simp mode. Let's start with Magic the Gathering. Welcome, MTG player. You understand the rules of the game well. For time's sake, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic summon magic and monsters to bring your opponent's health points to 0. Here is how they are all scams to me. 1. Having to buy mystery packs, hoping to get a desirable card that will give you an edge. So already out of the gate, it's pay to win. Pay for a bunch of packs or look up auction on cards. We had a friend visit us for the weekend who is a professional Magic player. This is his main focus with a few breaks in between. He informed me that if you intend to go down the road of competitive play, be ready to spend $10,000 to start. You can say, oh, well, I only play for fun. That's great, but that just means it can be a double waste then. If you don't have a large group of fellow friends who remain casual and have fun making up their own decks and never look up strategies on the internet, then you will never win a goddamn game outside of playing with newer or disgruntled older players. This applies to Warhammer and other tabletop games that require accumulative loads of figures. There is always someone on a forum or Reddit that has already figured out the arrangement of cards you need to build and the arrangement of army figures and Star Wars Armada ships you need in order to be near a decent challenger. To drive this point home, in order to be good at any of these card games, you need to be buying a bunch of mystery packs, as I mentioned earlier, with needed cards that are artificially made rare by the manufacturer in order to even potentially be an opponent.
A big reason Wizards can't reprint some older cards is because of a little thing called the reserve list. What that is a select group of older cards that we will never reprint because it would cause collectors to lose money off of hoarding them for their value.
That is fudging. Hooky. And this is why a lot of people stop with the game in the long run, while Wizards of the Coast couldn't give a flying excrement.
So Wizards of the Coast only cares about new players when it comes to Magic the Gathering.
They know the ones who get drawn in at a local Magic event will eat that excrement up. It works like a dealer selling heroin. The first hit of Magic cards is usually free or a small entry of $15. Then in order to keep having fun and overcoming the challenge of more capable players, you have to keep spending more and more. It's a bad relationship, and the thing about bad relationships is that people tend to stick with it because of all the money and time they have already spent into it. So this is how Magic the Gathering should have been. It should have just been a set number of cards. You can strategize, arrange your deck certain ways, maybe have an expansion or two, add some extra optional mechanics to the game to change the style of play or the way you can play the game with friends or multiple people at once. But that's it. It's just a set game. So you're not draining your customers over the course of 30 years. The reason why is because it would put Wizards of the Coast in a position that they would have to continue to be creative. They would have to come up with more interesting games that they could sell as opposed to Magic the Gathering and just relying on that. You know what requires a one-time purchase of $1 with the only other cost being the money you are willing to lose over a competitive game? Poker! It's the same amount of cards every time, no booster packs necessary. The only strategy is being able to mentally mess with your opponents. If that sounds as much fun as having a root canal to you as it does for me, here are some other card games me and my family and friends enjoy. Wingspan, a game where the goal is to have the highest score based on the birds you place in your aviary within a limited amount of turns. It's quick to learn and fun to try and strategize with. If birds are not your thing, there is Ascension, a competitive game where everyone starts with the same deck of cards, and the goal is to acquire higher level heroes and kill monsters, racking up the highest honor score over everyone else. No complicated mechanics, no list of banned cards to consult. That's right, a lot of these competitive collectathon card games like Magic often ban certain cards from play, so your deck can be rendered a big pile of expensive, useless excrement. Speaking of which, recently, as I was writing this up, Wizards of the Coast released their 30th anniversary pack. $1,000 for 4 packs of mystery cards. $1,000, you don't know what cards you're getting, and you can't even use them in actual playing. They're just there to be collected and put on a shelf behind glass, and I guess it looks nice. And staying on the topic of your entire collection being rendered useless, that leads us into Warhammer and Star Wars Armada, and anything else with similar mechanics. I had a friend who was heavily into Warhammer 40k, and despite being impoverished, and me pretty much the same, always on the edge with our bills, me and him managed to find ways to afford a legit army. All the while downloading and printing pirated PDF versions of the rulebooks in order to save money. So let's talk about the investment out of the gate. You have a rulebook that often costs $50 to $60 for the core rules, and the army you pick has its own rulebook, which is usually another $30. So already you're up to $100 just for the rulebooks. And then you have to spend another $50 to $100 just to get a starting army of the faction you choose. Warhammer is best described as like Risk, only with measuring distances, line of sight, and a lot more dice involved. Oh, and let's not forget lots and lots of money. You see, you don't just pick a faction like the Chaos Space Marines and buy one box of soldiers. Nah, you gotta be ready to spend hundreds to thousands of dollars picking and choosing what units to make your army up as. This is definitely a scene for painters, rich kids, and adult gamers with Stockholm Syndrome. To avoid wasting a lot of time and money, you'll end up going on an online forum and figuring out very quickly what are the units to buy that'll make the most effective army for the faction you like. They all have their own rule books, as well as the core rule book. You're looking to be at least out $200 or more, and your army will be good for the game for about 3 to 5 years. I'm not going to nerd out the details here, but you see what happened with me and my first husband? We spent a pretty penny getting a very strong Chaos army together. There was a effective unit called Khorne Berserkers, melee fighters that can decimate any group of strong target. The new rulebook came out, making this current army build of ours useless. So if we wanted to remain competitive in the game, we would have to buy a whole bunch of other units to replace those current ones, at which point we were done. We were both like, fudge. This game, that's it. I'll maybe buy some figures to paint because I enjoy that, the video games, the hilarious lore, but never again with the tabletop scene. You know what was suggested to us when it came to our army being useless? Just buy more.
Your card was declined.
Yes, buy every single unit related to that faction. You're looking to spend maybe close to $1,000 to $2,000 for every soldier covered in a single army in order to stay competitive as the rules adjust and change over time. That is insane, especially considering there has never been a way to make a living off of it playing competitively compared to Magic the Gathering. It's just another system designed to entice new players and not give a shit about keeping them around. Just, you, give me your money, and don't you dare try to create any fan works of our stuff, or we will orbital strike your A with a cease and desist. Privateer Press, however, surprisingly, doesn't work this way. Though I don't have time to get heavily into it, they run a game called Hordes and War Machine. They have a set core rulebook that's downloadable, has been unchanged for half a decade, if not more, and rather than go through retail stores, they are made to order instead. Unlike Games Workshop, they encourage 3D printers to make their stuff. It's more important to them that people are playing the game and enjoying themselves, instead of taking out a second mortgage to afford making a Warhammer Apocalypse army. You could potentially just get together with a few interested friends, shell out a few $100s, and have a weekly wargaming session easy. Really, I'd say your best bet is just to get something like Warhammer 40k Armageddon. It plays by the same core rules, you don't have to spend hours of gluing and painting your models, and you don't have some try-hard arguing with you about the rules and stuff because a machine is doing all the calculating for you. Anything that doesn't involve actually playing the physical tabletop game is preferable to the actual tabletop game. And it's not an argument of whether or not it's fun. Of course these games are fun. Just like how a pyramid scheme relies on their products being at least usable in some way, or sometimes even good. If they were shit, no one would buy it. No one would play it. No one would do anything with it. But because it is fun, they take advantage of that. And so rather than making a new game, keeping people interested in their company and finding other avenues and creative ways to play, they just string people along. Here's a new deck you need to have. Here's a new army that you need to have. Here's a new rule book that you need to have in order to keep competitive in this scene of yours that you involved yourself in. And the more money you spend, the more time you put into it, the less likely you are to just give up and back out because, hey, you spent this much money, why quit now? Just like all these people who get suckered into pyramid schemes and money market companies.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What's up?
Aside from Hordes and War Machine, if you want something less complicated that's involving strategy, there is Return to Dark Tower. One-time purchase with a optional expansion, and Gloomhaven. But if you insist on having something that involves one-on-one combat with strategy, then play some chess. The rules haven't changed for over, 1,000 years. Both opponents have the same units, and there's no need to shell out $80 for a blister pack. As enticing as it can be, a tabletop wargame involving a laser-focused dedication in order to play repels me like kryptonite to Superman. Speaking of comic book superheroes, this leads us to the next scam and price gouging of people merely looking to entertain themselves with reading material, comics. When I was working part-time, I was spending upwards to $30 a week on comics. Thankfully, the draw for me wasn't collecting. Well, the Sonic comics, I guess, but that was mainly out of spite. See them mentioned somewhere in this video. Everything else was strictly for reading, and for the most part, never really involved the ongoing, never-ending stories of Marvel and DC characters. There are great stories within mainstream characters, like the Punisher, for example, and limited series that I've collected that I could gush over and probably will someday, because I see almost no one doing it here on YouTube. The Luna Brothers, The Sword, Why the Last Man, Mouse Guard, Elephant Men, the early run of IDW's Transformers, Berserk. In this case, talking about scams, we're going to focus on Marvel and DC. They are their own worst enemies when keeping readers around, in my opinion, or at least winning over new ones. Independent creators and publishers are fine, but I never could even try to continuously get behind the ongoing superhero stuff. The reason why I could see the superhero comic industry of Marvel and DC collapsing, it won't be because of whatever these fake fans are claiming it will be. Pregnant Joker, who gives a shit?
I must be an idiot, because I would have thought that, like, only someone at that level of, like, the bottom of the barrel of internet chuds would fucking ever, like, waste time complaining about that. But I was fucking wrong, because there's a Fox News segment where they're doing this shit.
Oh, God.
They're literally, like, devoting airwaves. This is being broadcast out to, like, old men and shit.
Joe, want to get your thoughts on this. There is a bizarre new Batman storyline that has the Joker becoming pregnant and giving birth. This is a statement you literally could not say 10 years ago, but this is the world in which we live now. Look.
Can you believe the world we live in now, TJ? This bizarre, repugnant.
I guess everyone forgot about the movie Junior.
The real reason why these comic book industries will collapse is because of their manipulation in storytelling and the comics itself. Allow me to explain. Their main focus is just gouging out the money from longtime fans and readers who are just too hung up on never letting go of their properties, as opposed to winning over new readers. When Marvel had its Civil War event, I was curious enough to buy the 7-issue series, which now looking back, feels like a very bare-bones story where it starts off with Iron Man and Captain America having a disagreement over a super-powered registry act. Iron Man is for it, Captain America is not. It culminates into a big fight between the two heroes and villains, only to have Captain America just give up after a bunch of civilians interfere over the collateral damage their fight is causing. And all the while, the story goes out of its way to give you the impression that registry will be bad. It just pulls a 180 near the end and tells the reader, nope, Iron Man was right all along, even though we gave no reason to even consider that. Thing is, the story is bare bones because that's the intention. Let's add this all up. Comics are roughly $4 a piece. So you have the main Civil War comic, which is 7 issues. Already we're at $28. Then we have a bunch of side one-off issues, which is 19. So we're at $76. Then there are side stories going on involving all these different superheroes. In order to get the full picture of the story and wondering where these other characters come from and what's going on with them, you have Amazing Spider-Man, 529 through 538, $36. Black Panther, 17 through 25, $32. Blade, $4. Cable and Deadpool, 30 through 32, $12. Captain America, 22 through 25, $16. X-Men, 4 issues, $16. Young Avengers, Runaways, $16. Daredevil, $4. Fallen Sun, Death of Captain America, 1 through 5, $20. Fantastic Four, 536 through 543, $28. Ghost Rider, 8 through 11, $16. Heroes for Hire, 3 issues, $12. Incredible Hulk, $4. Iron Man, 2 issues, $8. Iron Man Captain America, $4. Moon Knight, 6 issues, $20. Miss Marvel, 6 through 8, $12. New Avengers Illuminati, $4. New X-Men, $4. Punisher War Journal 1 through 3, $12. New Avengers 21 through 25, $20. The Sensational Spider-Man $24, 6 issues. She-Hulk, 2 issues, $8. Thunderbolts, 103 through 105 and 110, $16. Why does it skip from 105 to 110? I don't know, but I'll be generous and give them the 4 issues. Winter Soldier, $4. Wolverine, 7 issues, $28. X-Factor, $8. Altogether, you are at $492. All of which happened within a few months. And you could say, well, I have some friends that we could share and get together and come and share our issues with each other. Who cares? At the end of the day, you're all spending upwards of $50,000 for the entire story block of Civil War. Movies can often cost between $100,000 to $100 million. At the end of the day, when you buy it online, it's usually a $4 rental or a $20 purchase. Why are comic books dying again in the United States? Comic book issues are full of ads. The stories are dragged out on purpose. Unlike Magic, which cares about capturing mainly new people, comics are focused on siphoning long-time invested fans for all they are able to afford. Even when I was buying comics, the indie scene with stories that have a planned beginning, middle, and end was my main focus. Even when living with my parents and working 2 part-time jobs while attending college, I couldn't justify the idea of just piling on a bunch of money for comics that are just mental masturbation. I love all the animated adaptations of things like The Long Halloween, Superman, Batman Apocalypse, All-Star Superman, Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hold still!
Take him down. We need answers.
You're welcome to try.
For a $4 rental or a $10 to $20 purchase, you basically get the whole story arc. I feel the best method is waiting for a story to conclude and buy the trade paperback. Plenty of good graphic novels and manga that have nothing to do with Marvel or DC you haven't read yet, that have long since completed their stories, like Bone, Why the Last Man, Attack on Titan. I get for the ongoing series you can just jump in at any time and start reading anywhere, but really what's the point? It'll just be an endless soap opera that you'll eventually get tired of, if not overly offended over some plot twists, like One More Day, Captain America, Hail Hydra. And when it comes to collecting, unless there are only 10 issues in existence of the comic you own, then it's worth less than the paper it's printed on, in terms of a investment, which is fine to me. Books should be material that inspires your imagination, ideas, or just works as a form of pure, stimulating entertainment. Not to be some flimsy, speculative investment. Speaking of flimsy investments, that leads us to the major video game scene, specifically games as a service. Now I currently, or rather not so currently, play Darktide with friends and family. Same went for Vermintide 1 and 2 as well. The thing about that though, if I didn't have any friends or family involved with it, I wouldn't spend a goddamn second in it. Looking back at all the ones I played, Warframe, New World, Outriders, Guild Wars 2, and what is the fudging point here if I played solo? Could I ever go to the first Vermintide? Is playing through that game's bare minimum of a campaign solo even worth it compared to even the first Diablo? There is certainly predictability in all the Diablo games, and they do have random map layouts and sense of building up in power with a growing degree and more powerful threats throughout the games, on top of having a much greater variety in gear. I'll give Guild Wars 2 and the like a pass because at least there are stories, plots, and character developments behind those games that could allow solo play. But the others, your Vermintides, Left 4 Deads, Dead Before Dawn, going through the same missions over and over and over and over, I don't understand what people are seeing in this shit. There'll be times I want to relive the experience that is the Baldur's Gate trilogy, The Longest Journey, Doom and Doom Eternal. There's never going to be a time during my lonesome I'll boost up Darktide so I can earn little bits of currency in order to buy a slightly better gun that I can use to maybe beat the same mission again at a harder difficulty. Focusing on Darktide, by the way, it really seems like they are pushing the envelope with what they can get away with in terms of the lack of customization of gear, appearances without shilling out real money in their cosmetic shop. Because of course it has a cosmetic shop, and of course, compared to the rest of the game, it's functional. You can't just unlock everything the game is capable of by simply playing the damn game. I noticed this time they have an automatic cycle of objective and mission types, which I like, but you know what I would like more? An actual co-op style campaign. and some variety. But of course, we can't have that. People will complete it in a too short amount of time if it's an A to B type of game with story progression, characters, and arcs, and more voice actors. It was hysterical getting halfway through that game leveling up my character. We would get a mention in a cinematic that there was a saboteur looking about.
The surface to the enemy. There is a traitor among us. Everyone is a suspect.
Does anything come of it? Yeah, when you max out at level 30, many hours later, you're taken to Commander Supreme here along with some other prospect you never seen in the game, nor interacted with before. He pulls out a gun and aims it at you, like, oh yeah, he's going to really shoot you in the head and delete your character. I wish he would have, because that would have been fudging hilarious. Like, we haven't seen this trope a million times before already. Really, this girl standing next to me should already be like, oh shit, I know how this scene is playing out. Just kidding, bro. I'm really going to shoot this person instead. That's it. Story over. Now get back to grinding the game loop and wait for some new content to drop in like a year or two. Maybe we'll even include a new class, or dare I say even subclasses like Vermintide 2. Remember Vermintide 2? Yeah, what do you think happens when the servers of that game get shut down in 5 years? Is there any real incentive to play it single player? If you can play it out at all, that is, without connecting to an online server. That pretty much covers all my grievances, from card games to board games to video games, scams, and scams everywhere. Now don't take anything I said personally. If what you're enjoying isn't throwing you into debt or cutting you off from meaningful relationships, then whatever. Why would you let anything I say change that? Really though, being aware of things like the drought map, the inevitability of the climate refugees trying to come up to America from the south, or boat themselves in. Without diving too deep into that within this video, I'd say a good hobby would be collecting non-perishable foods, investing into stocks instead of spending $1,000 for a Mystery Magic the Gathering 30-year anniversary legacy pack that you can't even use in official battles. But how about with $1,000, invest in some stocks? With every time the market crashes, even with all that considered, a lot of that shit ends up growing in the long run. Maybe learn some skills. Even knitting is something compared to being lost in some games as a service title that will be shut down after a few years, if not less, if you're playing a Square Enix title. These are just my thoughts. Now, I was going to go off and play some Darktide, but apparently we already ran out of content for that game, so I guess it's going to sit on my Steam library and gather digital dust for a while. If you have any negative experiences involving Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, comic books, video games, and all their business practices, please tell me about it. I'd be more than happy to read some comments on that. Right now I'm working on this Ratchet & Clank commission. Once that's done, I'm going to be working on my kids' book. In the meantime, I am going to start building up a whole catalog of content so that I can post things more consistently. I felt the need to post this video as soon as possible because of the timing that was Wizards of the Coast coming out with their little document that got leaked online. So that's why this is out the way it is right now. But for the future, next couple months, if not longer, going to be lining up a whole bunch of new content for this year, discussing various topics, as well as starting to share more personal stories on this channel and the Weird Source channel. So stay tuned to all of that. I am not going away despite whatever may come up. I am live streaming my work progress on CraftyAndy Hangouts here. I'll link that down below as well. That way you know I'm actually busy. And I'm also streaming on Pause Off Live on YouTube and Twitch. Since Twitch is kind of up in the air of whether or not that's even a viable service at this point, I'm kind of streaming both, so whatever. I just linked the YouTube video. Who cares? Comment me ideas and suggestions for art pieces and topics to cover. Subscribe. Patreon for early videos and art. Prints are for sale at the store. There's the Weird Zords channel for other stuff. Streaming progress of latest projects involving videos and art at CraftyAndy Hangouts. Pause Off channel for gaming highlights found live at the Pause Off Live channel on YouTube and Twitch. Discord link for Horny JL Alliance, where other creators, including myself, are found. You heard what I said. Now see it done.